Heard of Q broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there, it's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen, it invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app, it's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Heard of Q Broadcast? It's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part? There are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there, it's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen, it invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app, it's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Of Q Broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime.
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Anne Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response. Shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, isn't it?
Well,
yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrison?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
That she feels like she doesn't want to be like everyone else, and she wants to be her own person, And through the dress code and her lifestyle, she's expressing this. It doesn't conform with our rules, but we're learning to cope, and it's a very, very difficult thing. Extremely difficult.
Dareth, let's let you talk for yourself. You're from Long Beach, California.
I just can't handle being like everybody else because that's what everybody else wants, you know. Just because somebody else does something does not mean that I have to do it. You know, I have my own morals and ideals, and I go by them.
Are you drug-free, Dareth?
Yes, I am.
Is this a political statement then? Do you have some misgiving about the society that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, you know. A lot of the people are really aware of what's going on, you know, and I don't like it, you know. There's a lot of problems.
What?
I don't like the way society is based.
What bothers you? Give us some of the misgivings you have.
The rich, the poor, the people starving, the wars, you know. Why can't, you know, everybody just get along and just live their life?
Selling real and Chevy.
Propagating truth in a world of lies. You are listening to the John Age Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age, and I am your host, John Age. Happy to be back with you once again, taking you into the dark side of the AM and hailing proudly from the coastal plains of the Old North State. I'll be your tour guide this evening as we take a somewhat satirical journey down the path of murder, destruction, mayhem, and the extermination of human life on this planet, a forced march into obsolescence, thrust upon us by a global Luciferian death cult of pedophiles. Check out anomicage.com. If you've not already done so, please like all the likes, subscribe to all the subscriptions, paypal.me/anomicage, patreon.com/anomicage as well. That's definitely the best way that you can find all things me, contribute to the show, paypal.me/anomicage, patreon.com/anomicage as well. Cash App, buy me a cup of coffee, free iPhone app, free Android app, subscribe by email link, and the free newsletter. It's all right there at anomicage.com. So please consider checking that out and becoming a patron and all that jazz. As I always say, you can take me on the go or wherever you want to go. To the gym, to the pool, out of the country, anywhere. You can listen to the Anomic Age on the go. So do that. Everything seems to be working swimmingly as far as the updates, the push notifications. It's all seemingly working. Scary enough, it is. Don't tell anybody. It's all working. So check it out. Download the apps and so forth. Kind comments, 5-star reviews. You know what to do. All right. We got a great show for you today. Great show, I must say. It's entitled this: Societal Grooming. And we're definitely going to take a more serious, I'd say, timber than we usually do on this show. Well, I won't say usually, but sometimes the society we live in is just a mass humiliation ritual. So it's impossible to not be satirical most of the time when you're covering these doodads, dimwits, and you know. Anyway, so if you were looking for a show today where we're going to cover, I don't know, what's that? Chud the Builder. We're not covering that. Covering Prince Charles in all his asinine monarchy regalia, telling you that we're going to roll out the global credit score and the international currency, aka the New World Order, is alive and well, and it ain't going nowhere anytime soon because the people coast to coast are more weak than most. So, we could cover Charles, we could cover Chud. What else we got? We could cover China and DJT rolling over there with Gigi and a bunch of globalist scumbags on Air Force One. How did they all raid that plane right now? Anyway, we're not covering any of that because, to be honest, frank, and just downright real with you, I could not possibly care less. So, goodness gracious. I almost had a sneezing fit. What we are going to cover is this notion of social grooming. That's exactly what we're going to cover today. Pardon me. And we're not going to cover it through the traditional lens. So I think in the vernacular of Los Estados Unidos, especially in the last few years, it's all become very commonplace in the conversational lexicon, especially with the Epsteins or Steins or Steins. This notion of grooming should be, but you could take it all the way back to, and which we're going to connect some dots today to the McMartin preschool from California. You could look at the DC Madam. You could look at the Boys Club, the Nebraska Boys Club from, what is it, like 30 plus years ago now. All of these were uncovering the same things, the same elementals, if you will. But it goes back far, far further than that. So that's really what we're going to tackle today, is we're going to cover the societal grooming epidemic that's been going on for well over 100 years here in the anomic age. So some of these people we've discussed before, but to paraphrase or downright quote the great skate master Tate, we're going to take you to the deep end of the pool today. It's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to cover some of these topics in the deep end of the pool for sure. So without further ado, let's delve into it. I've kind of tried to more succinctly cover these individuals in a chronological way, meaning which ones came first and which ones came most recently. And we'll sort of circle back at the very end, and I hope tie this whole thing in a very nice, neat little Christmas bow for you. So before we get into all that, let's cover some of the cover six here. What in the world? Just when you think everything's in the clear, something else is coming at you from the rear. So let's put this one on the screen. What the heck? Let's go this way. That'll take us right here. Bling. That's where we need to be. So if you're looking at this one on the screen, we could look at it through the lens of first wave feminism. So you could look at it through first wave feminism and tack it all the way back to, I can see what's going on here. You could tack it all the way back to first wave feminism of the mid 1800s and roll all the way into the mid to early 1900s. Sorry, I was thinking, what the flip is wrong with this thing? And of course, we don't know. Let me see. Let me just hold on for just a second, folks, and we're going to see what the flip is going on here. Okay, let me see here. Yep, let's take that off. Let's put that on. There we go. It's real funny, folks, that oh boy, I'm not even going to say it.
I'm not going to say it, folks. I'm not going to say it. Let's do all the tech support like just live on the show right now. I mean, why not? Why wouldn't we do it live on the show right now? Let's see. That's fine. We'll just pull it just like that and we'll roll it all the way over. That's fine. It's okay. No need to get hostile. No need to act rash. Because we're going to get the graphics on the screen that we actually want and it's going to be fine. Just like that. So while talking about first wave feminism, we could go all the way back to the mid 1800s and we could look at some of these ladies on the screen. And we take you all the way back to 1920 and the 19th Amendment. But we're not going to go that far back. I'm just giving you sort of the prequel to all this. So when you look at first wave feminism, it was all about equal rights, man. It was all about voting rights and economic rights and having the same rights and rights, right? Susan B. Anthony, all these clowns that you would probably remember if you took a history class in the 1950s. I'm sure if you took one now, they won't even cover these people at all. So first wave feminism, you get all that good stuff. And everybody gives a deep exhale and says, oh, goody. Women have the right to vote. It's 1920. We got the 19th Amendment. Oh, boy. Man, things are looking up. Not so fast. Because that's really going to take us into our first rung of this satanic death cult of pedophiles ladder. So when I intro the show every week, twice a week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I say a global satanic death cult of pedophiles, that's not hyperbole. That's not just talk. That's just not me pulling a bunch of lovely adjectives and superlatives out of my rear to intro the show. That's exactly what we got going on. So we're going to tackle that today, and we're going to take it back to 1910. 1910, we got Dr. Magnus Hirchfeld. That's him. So we got this gentleman on the screen. Well, let's put him on the screen in the big view because we need to see this joker too. Don't gasp because this thing is scary on the screen for you. And this is coming directly from Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial of the Holocaust. And this one's entitled Transgender People, the Nazi State, and the Holocaust. Disgusting, I know. So we got Dr. Magnus Hirchfeld, 1910. This is the first guy, a Jewish individual from Germany. So every time I get criticism for saying transvestite or trannies, don't criticize me, criticize Dr. Magnus Hirchfeld. So in 1910, Magnus Hirchfeld coined the term transvestite. And whenever I hear this, I immediately get taken back to the 1983 classic, Peter and the Test Tube Babies, the lovely song before everyone became completely retarded, the song Transvestite. Lovely chorus in that one. I won't play it for you. I might get a strike. Transvestite. But anyway, so you got Magnus 1910 giving us the term transvestite, but wait, there's more. We got by 1919, he had begun and founded and started this lovely Institute for Sexual Science. Almost had a Freudian slip and said, oh boy. A lovely other things they did in the early 19 teens in Germany. The first state recognized ID pass. You see, at that time, it was illegal to be a homosexual and illegal to be a transvestite without your ID pass. They had trans certificates. Oh, yeah. Trans certificates. Without this, you could be arrested. And this was primarily in the democratic, note the D, Weimar Republic. Yeah, this is the same Weimar Republic that was completely belly up after World War II, in which case you get the often referenced people going to the store with a wheelbarrow full of monies in the Weimar notes just to buy a little bit of bread because the inflation was so high. And we're going to see that sooner or later in the Weimar Republic of los Estados Unidos. You can see a lot of parallels and similarities here. So this was all going on. The trans IDs and certificates were being granted in the Weimar Republic. But wait, there's more. because we often hear about Berlin and the Berlin Wall, but you're not getting the whole story, because right about this time in the 1919 and beyond, because we already had Hirchfeld beginning his Institute for Sexual Science. This is the first transgender surgeries. This is the first legitimization, quote unquote, in popular culture and vernacular of trannies. So this was Hirchfeld in 1919 and 1910, which takes us into Berlin. So what was going on in Berlin? Berlin in the 1910s was a hub. This is coming straight off the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. It was a hub, I tell you, for the trans community. You see, people think that there's something new, novel, and innovative in the 2000s. But no, folks, there's nothing new under the sun, as the biblical reference will tell you from King Solomon. There's nothing new under the sun. This was all going back then too, folks. So at that point in time, Berlin was a hub of transgenderism. They had the famous cabaret club El Dorado. Spooky. And they also had one of the first trans, it says the first trans magazine. It was entitled, I won't even attempt it in German. It was entitled in English, The Third Sex. Oh boy. But don't worry, because if you keep reading this lovely diatribe on the screen for you, this thing, this individual is going to tell you how horrible it was, because in 1933, the Nazis swept in and crushed the thriving tranny scene in Berlin. The homosexuality, the pedophilia, the pornography, all this lovely stuff was going on in dear old Berlin in 1910. But by 1933, the Nazis swept in and crushed it out. And here's the part, the only part that you will actually ever hear of this in the history books. Because in the history books, they'll say the horrible Nazis swept in and were burning books. But they don't tell you what books they were burning. They were burning the books in the Institute for Sexual Science. They were burning books with pedophilia. They were burning books with homosexuality. They were burning books of pornography. This was all what was being burned by the Nazis in 1933. So I'm not saying Nazis good. I'm just saying burning pedophilia, I would say, is good. So these people should have all been definitely tried for these crimes if they were in fact pedophiles. But they burned the library, the photographs, the medical records, and arrested those people in the tranny burlesque clubs, and I guess publishing these magazines and so forth and so on. So that's what was going on. 19-teens, Dr. Magnus Hirchfeld. But wait, there's more, because this takes you into other areas of lore. And yes, I do have notes on this one because it's importante. So other notes that we have to get into on this one would go directly into Margaret Mead. Let's put this one on the screen, shall we? Yes, Margaret Mead, everyone's favorite champion of champions. The champion of champions, folks. Margaret Mead, everyone's favorite anthropologist, right? Everyone's favorite anthropologist. What in the devil's going on here? This is just going to drive me nuts too. Nope, we're not going to have that, folks. We shan't. We shan't. That's better. So Margaret Mead, everyone's favorite anthropologist, the living legend, I tell you. Everyone's got to talk about dear old Marg. So the dark side of the force with dear old Marg, or should I say just the history of Margaret Mead. I'm not even going to spin the positive or the negative. I'm just going to give it to you straight down the pipe. Both barrels full of loaded. So Margaret Mead, the claim to fame primary early student of the father of American anthropology, Franz Boas, a Jewish-born German ethnographer who made his way to Columbia University and is touted as having the first department and chairship of Antropología in los Estados Unidos. So, neither here nor there. Margaret Mead's big claims to fame was her works in sexuality. What? Yes, that's correct. So, The big one, 1928, coming of age in where? In Samoa. Coming of age in Samoa. Follow-ups with dear old Margaret Mead, 1935, Sex and the Temperament in Thrace, Primitive Societies, and a whole lot of other ones. And you're going to see a running theme with several of these individuals. So I'm just going to point this out first with Mark, and we'll roll it into all these other individuals too. Because in doing so, we will point out how aptly the various propaganda arms of the mainstream media were used to sway and coerce and change public opinion, moving the Overton window from what was accepted and what was deviant, and interchanging the two between what was deviant and what was accepted by the end of the century. So Margaret Mead, 1928, coming of age in Samoa, going out into the Samoan Islands and studying sexuality in the islands. So she was touted as a great anthropologist, a women's rights activist. She was bisexual. She had 3 different husbands and several different female partners. She was a monthly contributor to Red Book magazine, as well as a plethora of other mainstream magazines. So she really transcended, the academic journals, and it was to push an agenda. It was to push the free love, pre-sexual revolution agenda. See, this began over in Germany, in the Weimar Republic, and it spread, this insidious infection, across the pond and here, there, and everywhere, and to where we see it today. The normalization, the standardization, and legitimization of deviance in society. So Marg was pushing this early on in 1928, coming of age in Samoa. This highly critical work was the cornerstone of all her work, really. If you flash forward about 70 years, 50 years, I guess, and he's still doing it today, I believe, if he's still alive. The anthropologist Derek Freeman basically went out there and did a restudy of her work and said, yeah, it's kind of balderdash. She didn't know the language. She didn't live with the people. And she basically got chumped by the native peoples. The native peoples, the women is what she was primarily working with, was basically just joking around with Margaret and saying, oh, yeah, it's open sexuality here. We do whatever we want. There's none of these mores, taboos, or standards that we would have in Western society. It's all open, man. It's all free love, 1928 version. But Derek Freeman's restudy of her work said, nah, not so much. Maybe she was just bamboozled by the native peoples. But either way, her work was used to normalize this free love, open society. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Yeah, that guy's going to come up too. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Remember him? All these people are going to come up again and again. Aleister Crowley, folks, in case you didn't put that piece of the puzzle together. So, but the big takeaway from this is the normalization of this in the mainstream periodical. So this was pushed in women's magazines early 1900s. And we already know that propaganda, the book Propaganda, remember that one? The literal blueprint for all this. Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, wrote the book Propaganda, which was used to push torches of freedom early 1900s, hand in hand, pun intended, with the women's suffrage movement and the first wave feminism of women's rights. Women need to smoke too. So Edward Bernays had these bimbos out there with their cigarettes in the parade, touting torches of freedom. This is emblematic of our liberty. Libertas. Morons, folks. Are you seeing how this is all being transmitted like an infectious hantavirus into the mainstream of the society? Hope you are, because this is how the Overton window is moved. It's not moved all at once. It's moved incrementally, slowly, but surely. From one deviant to the other acceptable. So that's Margaret Mead. So much we could look at with her. Oh, I forgot this one. She was also employed by the Rand Corporation from 1948 to 1950. The Rand Corporation, folks. Yeah. She was touted with having to study Russians and how they react and interact with authority. That was definitely Margaret Mead, too, employed by the Rand Corporation. How strange, isn't it? You should definitely look into, I don't have time to cover it today, but look into Project Camelot. This was also 1960s, 1964, if I'm not mistaken. No notes on this one. It was from America University. Project Camelot was basically using social sciences, academicians, primarily anthropology, sociology, psychology, economics, and political science, if I'm not mistaken. These various social sciences were being used to better understand the Vietnamese and how to take over, how to use them, how to coerce them, how to win hearts and minds. That was Project Camelot. The American Anthropological Association, I believe it was about 30 years ago, came out and did like this whole study of Project Camelot and came out staunchly opposing it. And social scientists should never, I tell you, be employed by the government and using that data to harm or hurt or exploit people in times of war. No. Ironic, isn't it? When the female figurehead, the patriarch of anthropology, Margaret Mead, was employed by the Rand Corporation for over 10 years. So that was Margie Marg, in case you're nasty. But wait, there's so much more, isn't there, folks? Because we got number 3, Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey, folks. Can we put this one on screen? Split screen, shall we? Alfred Kinsey, 1953, Time magazine cover. Alfred Kinsey, come on down. We've got another bisexual for you. Yes, Alfred Kinsey. So they still have a building named after this pedophile at Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana. Oh boy, the state of basketball, the state of the Indy 500, and the state of pedophiles named Alfred Kinsey. So Alfred Kinsey, widely regarded as a sexologist. He was actually an etymologist. He was trained in etymology. He was trained and had his PhD in bugs, folks, etymology. So he went from studying the sexual behavior of bugs and parlayed that into the sexual behavior of people. Very bizarre, isn't it? Very, very bizarre. So that's old Alfred. No, we don't want him on there. We want Alfred Kinsey. Where is that lovely individual? He's such a lovely guy. Oh my. Let's just switch back over here. We don't want to see Mark. We got Alfred. So let's give you a rundown on old Alfred Kinsey, shall we? So, Alfred Kinsey, huh? Good grief. So we got with Alfred Kinsey. His first big thing was 1926. Oh, not his first big thing. His first big thing, 1926, he authored a textbook for high school students entitled Introduction to Biology, in which he pushed very heavily evolution. Oh boy, 1926, and we're pushing evolution to high school kids. What do you think that's going to do in a matter of 30, 40, 50 years? You think it's going to move the Overton window just a little bit? Yeah, that was Alfred Kinsey, 1926. And he didn't just do it at a glance. He did this wholeheartedly, whole hog, if you will, pushing evolution to the high school students. As I always say, K through indoctrination, college, university, weaponization. Yeah, Alfred Kinsey. So, and like I said, he wasn't pushing this sort of on the ad hoc level. He was actually demeaning people that didn't believe in evolution. How dare you not believe in evolution? Oh boy. By 1933, you see these dates are paralleling quite well, don't you? Weimar Republic, Margaret Mead, Alfred Kinsey. 1933, he first discussed sexual practices with a colleague. And at the time, he was studying the gall wasp sexual practices. And by the end of 33, he'd come up with a Kinsey scale, 0 to 6, 0 being heterosexual, and 6 being homosexual. These were purely hetero, purely homo, and in betwixt and between, there's somewhere in the middle. You could fall. What else we got? 1935. He was definitely picking up steam, and he was leading talks discussing, the ignorance of sexual structure and physiology. That was the problem, you see. Everybody was just ignorant. And you see this running theme in the cult of academia, K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization, where they love to talk down to the plebs. They love to talk down to the plebs. It's the old technocracy thing all over again. You see, the plebs are just too stupid to understand, but luckily the academicians are there to talk down to the slave class and bring them in the fold and move that Overton window over there. That's the game plan, folks. So we got Alfred Kinsey by 35. He was talking about that, but wait, there's more, because he was also discussing, and this will be good. He was basically saying that the real problem, well, we can go that way, can't we? He was saying that the real problem was this delayed sexual experience can cause harmful psychological effects on the people. And by delayed, he was saying that people should be having sexual experiences at an earlier and earlier and earlier age. Sounds a little creepy at best, pedophilic at worst, but wait, there's more. Because if you look into the work of the great Dr. Judith Reisman, she was on this show once prior to her death, I think about 3 years ago. I had a great time talking to her, very down-to-earth, lovely lady to speak with. None of this pomp and circumstance, kiss my ring, bow down to my greatness that you would expect from people that I've tried to communicate with out in North Carolina. No, Dr. Reisman was great. But nevertheless, published a litany of books, documentaries, publications on a lot of the more mainstream talk shows in the 80s and 90s. I believe she was on Phil Donahue. I can't remember a couple of the other ones she was on, but definitely covered Alfred Kinsey to a great degree and discussed two of his books, the most notable in 1930, what the heck do we have these suckers? 1948 and 1953. 1948, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, and 1953, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female. He also made the major publication circuit with the usual suspect mainstream magazines. The obviously Time Magazine man on the cover there, but he also did a lot of the other ones as well. Again, reaching the plebs outside of the academic journals in the more mainstream periodicals, mainly targeting women. You got it. What else? 1955, he and Kenneth Anger, an occult filmmaker in the mid-1900s. 1955, him and Kenneth Anger visited Abbey at Thelema. The Cult of Thelema, Aleister Crowley. Folks, remember I told you it was going to come back and haunt you like the ghost of Christmas past? You guessed it, 1955. Him and Kenneth Anger visited the old Cult of Thelema in Sicily. And like I said, already mentioned this. He was bisexual, all kinds of different lovers. But that's really not the problem, folks, because his books, Human Sexuality in the Male and the Female, but primarily the male is the one I'm going to talk about here, because that's the one that was gleaning a lot of information from prison inmates. A lot of people already practicing homosexuality. And it had a whole series on states of arousal of children. Yes, this sick piece of human garbage categorized and cataloged all this. And the detractors from this would say, oh, this was just one person that he had in the book. It was a big oops. Oh, it's just a big oops. Nothing to see here. 1948, we're going to come out with a book about pedophilia. And we're going to cover these stages in the book, and we're going to discuss it. And oh, yes, he was practicing this nonsense too. This was this complete scumbag, Alfred Kinsey, the guy that Indiana University still has a building named after, the guy who's still touted as, again, being one of the primers of the sexual revolution, much like Margaret Mead, because this came out in 1948, the second book in 1953. Again, pushing the Overton window, pushing an agenda of free love, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, just like Aleister Crowley and the Cult of Thelema that he went and visited with his little friend. Are you nauseated yet, folks? Are you completely disgusted and sickened yet? Because you should be. But wait, there's more. We also got to get into this one. Should be fairly obvious. I think I'm not breaking any ground here with this one, pun intended. You got this one on the screen. Hugh Hefner, 1953, the first issue of Playboy magazine. And people often just sort of, and this really plays into and explains the normalization of degeneracy, the normalization of abnormality, the normalization of deviance. Because I don't know if they even still have this anymore. In psychology, they would have a whole course called abnormal psychology. In sociology, deviant behavior in society. I don't even know if these exist anymore, folks. But 1953, the first edition of Playboy magazine, it's very prima facie at this point. We've got FBI files and CIA files on Hugh Hefner and Playboy magazine. I believe it to be very prima facie that this was a government op. This could have been the front runner to Jeffrey Epstein and his little St. John Island, because with this, you had all of the same hallmarks. You had the Playboy Mansion. You had the Playboy clubs at different places in the U.S. Playboy Mansion, most notably, was basically like the front runner to Jeffrey Epstein's island. I mean, what better way to compromise politicians, celebrities, musicians, sports stars, the like, than to put these people in a compromising position? Come on over to the Playboy Mansion. You know, I mean, if you're anybody who's anybody at this point in the game and you get that invite, I mean, much like the same thing going on up into the 90s and I guess even the early 2000s, you had various celebrities. You still hear them coming out talking, oh, I went to the mansion and I visited, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this was just, it became popular culture. Pornography and hedonism became popular culture by the 2000s and the 90s as well. So this became normal. This became commonplace, folks. This was just the way it was. There's songs about this. There's tons of interviews about this. There's articles from Playboy magazine with all these different celebrities and sports stars and politicians even. All this was just commonplace, folks. They were putting articles in with the pictorials. I mean, this was just normalizing the same stuff that we've been talking about. So I would suffice it to say that, yeah, Hugh Hefner and Playboy magazine were tied hand in hand with the government. It was a psyop. It was Jeffrey Epstein Jr. Playboy Mansion was a great place to get all these people together. 9 times out of 10, I can almost 100% guarantee that they were compromised at these parties. You're going to tell me that there was no photographs going on. There was no filming going on. There was no recording of any type going on at these facilities. I ain't buying it for a single solitary second. But even if you do, oh heavens, I even had that pulled up. That's just sickening. Even if you do, this one's straight from People magazine, and this is just a sort of rerun of what came out in 1997. Playboy claims secret underground tunnels under the mansion. Yeah, under the mansion, folks. And it goes on to discuss some of the people that were involved in possibly having tunnels connected to their house. So you got Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty. You got, let me see, I'm sorry. You got Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, James Caan had secret underground tunnels from their home to the Playboy Mansion. So all this was just commonplace, folks. Commonplace. But wait, there's more, because in case you missed it, I already covered this. I covered the McMartin preschool, which ties directly into the Finders case. The Finders case where they were exposing trafficked children in Florida to D.C. There was a pipeline. FBI files were just released, I believe it was like 5 years ago. The McMartin preschool and the Finders case. The Finders case and the McMartin preschool. So the McMartin preschool was in California, in which they claimed, and this was highly touted and investigated by Ted Gunderson, who was the head of the FBI in California at the time. He went back after the place was torn down, of course. Always the crime scene's always destroyed. Went back, did archaeological investigations, found the tunnels, found the evidence of what the children had claimed. Underground tunnels. A whole bleep of a lot like the underground tunnels from the Playboy Mansion to these various Hollywood mansions in California. But don't worry, there's no trafficking going on. There's no pedophilia. There's no children being harmed at all. This is just normal. This is commonplace, right? So the Finders case, again, trafficking children on the East Coast. Primarily, this was in Florida and D.C., but certainly not exclusively to those locales. You got to look at the Nebraska Boys Club from the early 1990s, where once again, you had children being trafficked from the boys club to politicians to DC. Don't worry, because most of those children were just inexplicably had an overdose, committed suicide, the usual suspect kind of deal. Finder's case, no one knows what happened to these kids. McMartin preschool case, most of these kids, I believe, are still alive and well. Some of them have recounted, some of them saying it's legitimate. We don't know, but what we do know is what we're getting from People magazine, from people coming straight out of Playboy magazine. If you look at this, and it's, let me see if I can pull this one up. Not in Reader View. Let me close Reader View so I can show you the actual map here. There we go. Reader View showing you the map here. And this map is credited courtesy of Playboy. So this map is right here showing you the tunnels within the Playboy mansion. Nothing to see here, though, I'm sure. Nothing to see here. No connections, no ties. Hugh Hefner, Playboy magazine, CIA, FBI, nothing to see here, folks. You're just a satanic conspiracy theorist if you buy even a little bit of it. But wait, there's more. It just gets worse, really. It just gets so much worse. I've covered this guy before on the show, but I don't think I've covered it this in-depthly, and I certainly haven't tied all these things together for you, which I hope to do by the end here. So we got to talk about this guy, John Money. Dr. John Money, if you're nasty. He's a New Zealand doctor. He is deceased now. He was heavily employed by Johns Hopkins University. 1965, Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic. Yeah. 1965. In 1966, the clinic began doing sexual reassignment. In 1969, his book Transsexualism and Sex Reassignment came out. This should sound a heck of a lot like Hirchfeld from the early 19-teens Germany, or the Weimar Republic at the time. So that's John Money. But it gets so much worse, folks. He came up with these two lovely terms in 1986, chronophilia. That would be the sexual attractiveness to toddlers, and the nepiophilia, the sexual attractiveness to infants. So that was 1986, chronophilia, and 1983, nepiophilia. That would be courtesy of Dr. John Money. So he was a sick individual coming up with these lovely terms. He was doing sexual reassignment surgery at Johns Hopkins University from 1965 on. So again, nothing new under the sun. This deviant crap is not new. It's been pushed on you for over 100 years, folks. What we started with 1910, and we flash forward to 1965. This clown basically took all the German scientists crud. They got burned and kicked out of Germany by the Nazis. And he was just reinvigorating it and putting it in the United States vis-a-vis Johns Hopkins University. And you got to follow the money, as always. Cui bono? Who benefits from this stuff? Well, that would be K through 12 indoctrination, college, university weaponization. So these people aren't just going out there pulling money out of their own pocket, folks. This is Ford Foundation. This is Carnegie Endowments. This is where this funds, these monies are coming from. Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie, Ford Foundation. This is where this comes from, folks. So all this Johns Hopkins research didn't come out of John Money's pocket. It was funded. It was funded to push an agenda, to move the Overton window, to change the paradigm from deviant to normal. But here's where it really gets disgusting, because you had twin brothers from Canada. You had Bruce and Brian Reimer. Bruce and Brian Reimer in Canada. I believe they were born in 1960, 65, I believe. Anyway, so Bruce was getting a routine circumcision. This is hard to discuss, folks, but it's only going to get worse. When the cauterization method basically cut off his member. So during a routine circumcision, Bruce basically was irreparably harmed, folks. He lost his penis as a baby. Don't worry, because John Money comes in, meets with the parents, and convinces them that what needs to happen is he needs to go through and just have a complete castration and get on some hormone therapy and become a female. Oh, yeah. It gets so much worse. So the parents go along with the gag, and Bruce is castrated, put on hormone therapy, and passed off as a female until he's about 14 years of age, in which case his parents finally break the news to him after 14 years of torment and hell. Because clearly, I mean, just imagine this, folks. He's going through the public school system. He's going through all this. People are making fun of him. He's getting bullied right, left, center, and otherwise. The whole time, he didn't know what the flip is going on. But it gets catastrophically worse because John Money forces these two brothers to view pornography at age 5 and 6 and to practice. Well, there's no other way to pull it. This guy engages in pedophilia with the two brothers, forces them to become naked and I'll just say simulate acts on each other at 5 and 6 years old. This is what's going on in America. John Money, Johns Hopkins, Gender Identity Clinic. Same sort of stuff from the Weimar Republic in Germany. Same sort of stuff going on in the Indiana University Alfred Kinsey studies. Same sick nonsense, folks. This is just happening in the 1960s. So Bruce's brother, Brian, again, the two brothers are participants in this, participating in the pedophilia, participating in all this nonsensical, just ghastly activities, folks. So the brother, Brian, commits suicide by an intentional overdose in 2004. And that same year, after the age 14, Bruce rejects all this femininity. He takes hormones. He goes through a mastectomy. He tries to live a normal functioning life as a male because that's what he was all along. He rejected the female identity from the jump. Dr. John Money tried to say, oh, everything was great. Everything worked out fine. He was publishing articles on this sick nonsense saying it was great. Of course, to normalize this agenda for the general public to get more people in the cult to cut off their wee-wees. Okay? That's what's going on here. So by 2024, Brian commits suicide, and not too long after, his brother, who went through the castration of the whole 9 yards, Bruce, also commits suicide via shotgun. His wife ended up leaving him. He lost his job. He lost everything. He had to quit school because of the ridicule and bullying. But it was actually 1997, John Colapinto from Rolling Stone, and this is 1997. I'll put this on the screen for you. This is when this article first came out. It was kind of the expose piece exposing John Money and exposing just this horrific nightmare that these two twin brothers had to go through at the hands of this pedophilic criminal. Just a complete nightmare here, folks. So that will trace us all the way into 1997. And thankfully, I'll go ahead and say this. You can like it or don't like it. Alfred Kinsey's dead. Margaret Mead's dead. John Money's dead. Hugh Hefner's dead. All the scumbags that we just talked about are dead. Oh, it goes without saying, the first Jewish scientist, he's dead too. Hirchfeld, dead. So all these people that were pushing these dastardly deeds, these nefarious agendas for well over 100 years have all gone out to pasture. But the dark side of the force is their agendas have not. 1910 to 1997 and beyond, this mess has been promulgated, normalized, standardized, and subsidized. Subsidized by who, John? Subsidized by you. Subsidized by the taxpayers. Subsidized by the Carnegie Endowment, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefellers. Subsidized by your tax dollars. Let me underscore that again. So when people look out at this dystopian present, this hellish 1984 Brave New World nightmare that we live in, make no mistake, it didn't start 10, 15 years ago. It didn't start with Barack Hussein Obama. Didn't start with George Bush. Didn't start with Biden. It started way longer than that, folks. Way longer than that. The transformation of deviance into normal is really what this is all about. Moving that Overton window gradually. A little bit at a time, little bit at a time. See, Alfred Kinsey faced some backlash in the early, 1940s and 50s, because this was blasphemous. He was coming out talking about all these taboo topics. And he was pushing the agenda like, oh, we need to get more information about this. You know, that's the problem. People just don't know enough. They're just ill-informed about how sexuality works, you know, as if people just figured this thing out yesterday. This hasn't been going on since Adam and Eve, you know, thousands of years, but people somehow just don't know enough. We need an academician to come tell us plebs what's going on. And by what's going on, we need to have, what is it? Kinsey was pushing sex at an earlier age. Margaret Mead was pushing bisexuality, homosexuality. Same thing Kinsey was pushing. Same thing Hirchfeld was pushing. Guess what? Same thing Dr. John Money was pushing. Same thing Hugh Hefner was pushing. Hedonism. Hedonism, folks. That's what's up. That's what it's all about. It's not the hokey pokey. It's about hedonism. Hokey pokey. Maybe that's a euphemism for hedonism. You never know. But that's really what's up, folks. That's putting it all succinctly in a nice little bow. Me tie the bow off. Tie the bow off, John. Just tie the bow off. So when you look at the complete nightmare that we live in today, what was it? The last one was Jamie Presley. The one before that was the American Pie girl. I heard a couple of days ago Hillary Duff perhaps starting her own OnlyFans channel too. So all this normalization of hedonism. See, all this stuff was once upon a time, you know, it would show up late night on Cinemax and you'd squint through the lines, or, you know, showed up in a brown paper bag, or showed up at these various stores that were off the beaten path. Now this is all normalized, standardized, subsidized, folks. It's all on your computer. It's all on your phone. It's all on TV. It's all on the podcast. It's all on the live stream. It's all everywhere, folks. It's all normal now. Everything that they tried to convince the general public over 100 years ago normalized is now normalized. Now your big time celebrities are now not so big time. They're just on OnlyFans like everybody else. Just being whores for whore's sake. That's it. Nothing new under the sun. Once again, folks, nothing new under the sun. Same old song, folks. Same old song. So that's exactly what this is. It's the normalization of immorality. And if you push back against this, they flip the script. You see, what is now deviant is to be normal from 100 years ago. What is now deviant is to be someone who comes out and says, yo, we don't need to do all this. We don't need to sexualize children. We don't need to have like 1,000 channels of pornography at the drop of a button here. We don't need to have just everything and anything sold as sexualized. That's not good. But, you know, then you're a square, then you're abnormal, the normal word of hedonism. That's really what we're at. We're at Sodom and Gomorrah has been normalized. So if you dare speak out about the homosexual agenda, well, you're just a square, man. That's conservative, right-wing thinking. You must be one of them Trump supporters. No, I'm just a normal human that thinks this is terrible. That's what this is really all about, folks. And I see this every single day. I mean, I don't even think I repost these anymore. It's so commonplace now. Every single day, pretty much every single day in every single state, you could find an article on this. And I don't know if this is scary, unfortunate, or just now normal, that it's a lot of female teachers, more than male teachers is what I'm seeing demographically. I mean, I haven't done a statistical analysis of this, but just looking at the news for news sake, it seems to me like there's a whole lot more females that are now molesting children than there are males. And the sick thing is, they almost always show like these glamour shots of these female teachers. And it says, like 22-year-old, so-and-so was having intercourse and is now pregnant by a 13-year-old male student, or by a 14-year-old male student, blah, 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 blah. It's always the same mess, folks. And the sick part of this is, inevitably, there's people out there going, well, I wish they were like that when I was in school. What? No, folks. I mean, the sick thing is, the double standard is, if it's a male teacher, this is, oh my gracious, this is terrible. And it is. But then if it's a female teacher, you get this ridiculous double standard where you got people going, oh, I wish they were like that one. Oh, I can't believe how hot she looks. Oh boy. Yo, folks, that's disgusting and depraved. That's right out of Alfred Kinsey. That's called pedophilia. Did you miss that? Did you somehow not understand what pedophilia is? You want to look up the Alfred Kinsey research and look at, and this is all viewable. I'm not going to put it on the screen for you. You can look at his PDFs from his book. I believe it's still on archive.com, and you can see his quote unquote research where he's talking about the sexual arousal and stimulation of children down to infants. That's Alfred Kinsey. Same thing with Dr. John Money. Same sick nonsense, folks. Same garbage. But somehow it's okay if it's a female teacher versus a male teacher. It's pedophilia. These people should be thrown into a wood chipper. I'm sorry. I got no apologies on this whatsoever. This is disgusting trash. But this is what our society is currently promulgating, pushing, propagating, folks. This is the norm that we have been thrust into. So that's why you got societal grooming. Because all this has been normalized, folks. It's no longer just, oh, man, there's like a hot chick on a Budweiser commercial. It's not like, oh, man, look at that girl in the Hot Rod magazine. No. Now, at the push of a button, anybody and everybody that's got any internet access, which is virtually most of the population, can see this nonsense 8 days a week and twice on Sunday. And you can't tell me that it's not marketed for younger and younger audiences, because you have younger and younger people exposed to this. This is the actual definition of grooming, folks. This is exactly what Dr. John Money was doing with these two brothers, Brian and Bruce. That's what he was doing to 6-year-olds, folks. That's called grooming. Same thing with Kinsey. Same thing with Hirchfeld. All the same thing. But if you want to trace it back to Hugh Hefner, it was really the first normalization, legitimization of this within American culture. I believe before he was going to call it like Stag Magazine or something, but he went with Playboy instead. Because it's not as to say there wasn't to say the Witsy before Playboy magazine, but it is to say that it was not normalized into the American populace until Playboy magazine. It was denigrated, looked up, and scoffed upon, like, they don't want to do that, And now it's just, no, it's fine. It's totally fine now. I mean, totally fine in 1960, and even more socially acceptable in 2026. So everything that Playboy began to integrate into our society is now actually just viewed as like hokey. So Playboy is like, oh, it's so vanilla, it's so hokey. It's just like, looking at a Sears catalog in the lingerie section or something. That's how hokey it is now. Because everyone's become desensitized, demoralized, and just accepting of the degeneracy. It's normalization, folks. It's social grooming. So you can look at it through the sort of myopic lens as it's only happening to children, but that would be incorrect and only half true, because the grooming has gone on, not just with children, but with the society at large. Society at large is where this is really affecting people, folks, because you got to go way back. You got to go to the inception of this. You got to go to Hirchfeld. You got to go to Kinsey. You got to go to all these different people that we mentioned to really properly understand how this works. Because culturally, societally, we have been groomed as a nation since Hirchfeld. Somebody saying, that wasn't here, that was Germany, John. Folks, please understand, everything that came out of Germany came here. Operation Paperclip, the rat lines, that's just the obvious stuff, folks. It's just the obvious stuff. All that critical theory, all that lovely stuff that everybody was talking about 10, 15 years ago, that came out of the Frankfurt School, Frankfurt, Germany. The word kindergarten means child garden. All the tenets of our public education system that we loathe today, well, not all of them, but a lot of them came from the Frankfurt School. All that critical race theory, critical gender theory, critical up your rear theory, Frankfurt School. So don't tell me that Hirchfeld didn't have any effect on Margaret Mead, on Alfred Kinsey, of Hugh Hefner, of John Money. All this connects, folks. It's a big, disgusting societal grooming. I don't know if there's any turning this thing around. I really don't. Societally, I think we're just cooked. If I want to go dark side of the force, I'm saying we need a big Sodom and Gomorrah moment. Look at the accounts of Sodom and Gomorrah and try to outline for me how you think Sodom and Gomorrah is different than our current society. How is Sodom and Gomorrah different than Gay Pride Month? How is Sodom and Gomorrah different than your tax dollars being used to cut off genitalia, create fake ones out of forearms and staple them on? How is it different than Hirchfeld's tactics and tenets to flood grade schools, middle schools, and high schools with homosexual, pornographic, and pedophilic books, aka propaganda? How is it different to have Drag Queen Story Hour, where you got a bunch of trannies reading books to kids? How is that different than Hirchfeld? Because in my humble opinion, this is like Hirchfeld's dream. Because after all, Hirchfeld was just screwing Germany over. At this point in the game, it's the whole 50 states, contiguous and otherwise, getting screwed over metaphorically and literally by this satanic societal grooming agenda. That'll take us to the close today, folks. Hope you gleaned something good from this. You can't do everything, but you can do something. Get out there, do your part, make a difference, and I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.